Terima kasih Bapak dan Ibu-Ibu yang telah hadir pada hari ini, dan juga saya ingin mengucapkan banyak terima kasih kepada Muti yang telah bersedia meluangkan waktu menyiapkan bahan-bahan untuk presentasi hari ini. Ya, semoga adik-adik semua yang hadir dan terutama juga Bapak dan Ibu-Ibu yang mempunyai concern mengenai visi dan belum ada bayangan bagaimana visi itu, mudah-mudahan dapat sedikit mendapatkan pencerahan dari Muti insya Allah yang telah mendapatkan telah mendapatkan informasi dan mengalaminya secara langsung. Muti saat ini berada di year 12 di Mac Robertson High School. Tanpa memperpanjang waktu lagi, saya persilahkan Pak Muti untuk sesinya.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. You know what? Let's just get straight onto it. It's a Sunday, if not already. Just a little bit more about myself to have a bigger sense. Yeah, it looks fancy, doesn't it? Have a sense of legitimacy on what I'm going to be telling you all today. I'm in year 12. I'm at McRob. I'm an advocate for extracurricular, which you will find out today. A disclaimer, so what I'm about to inform you in this session is basically what I know about VCE, like from year 12, but then again, I don't research, and I don't research VCE like pathways as a living, so if you're asking about course selections and more strongly about advice on which subjects you want to take, like I can give you a bit of knowledge, I guess, into that and what some of those subjects might be, but I'd really suggest you talking to your career counsellor because she might have more experience with that sort of stuff. But yeah, just to clarify on how today's going to work, I'm open to questions, but at the end of today, for let's say probably half an hour, I'll be holding an in-depth Q&A session. So if you could hold your questions until then, that's fine. But if you have burning questions, go for it as well. So last year in year 11, I took 2 3/4s. One of them was methods, so it was in maths, and Indo, second language. And this year, I'm taking a lot of just a bunch of humanities. I'm taking legal, global, Englang, Revs, and I'm taking a uni extension, which I will talk about more later on. Yep. Cool. So basically, straight into what we're going to talk about. To truly understand the mechanics of year 12, and if you're aiming to excel in year 12, to figure out in a sense, your plan of attack for your senior year, you have to understand the basics of VCE itself. So, what is VCE? VCE is basically, it stands for Victorian Certificate of Education, and you get it at the end of the completion of your secondary education. Once you get it, it opens pathways to further study if you want to go to uni or if you want to go to TAFE, or also if you want to go straight to employment. Now, this is different to IB or VET or VCAL. I think with IB is sort of also the same level as VCE, but IB has a more international approach, and only certain schools offer IB, so if you're interested in IB, look into that further. And VET and VCAL have a more hands-on approach. So, for example, if you want to do a bit of carpentry, or if you're more interested in going straight into employment, well, probably, maybe VCAL and VET would be more suitable for you than VCE. Because for VCE is more on university entrance. So, yeah, the score at the end of your VCE, at the end of year 12, helps you more on university entrance requirements. And VCA, the Victorian Curriculum and Assessment Authority, is the body that handles all VCE things. So like your study scores and your ATAR, they're all handled by VCA. So basically with VCE, we have 4 units, which is units 1 and 2 and units 3 and 4. 2 of those, so in 1 year you basically do 2 units in 1 year. Units 1, 2 is more an introductory to units 3, 4. And unit 3, 4 is the most important because for units 1, 2, you only get a pass or a fail, so a satisfactory or a non-satisfactory. And in units 3, 4 is where you get your study score from. Now, units 3, 4 is divided into 2 graded assessments. One is the SACS, the school assessment. Wait, I've got this. School. Well, this is SACS. It's the test that your school gives you for each unit, and the second part is the external exams held by VCA, which is at the end of the year. The first one's on Wednesday, and it's 3 if you're thinking about doing an art subject. So, for example, for media, for BizCom, for food tech, you would be required to take a folio. And for example, basically, with the weight of these assessments, most of my subjects, they have an equal weight between SACS and external exams, but you might want to take a look into, if you want to know about more about your subject specifically, you might want to check up the VCA website for each subject, which they have like the weight and the grade for each assessment. With these units, so units 1 and 2 and units 3 and 4, for some of the subjects, you have to take the 1, 2 to do the 3, 4. So that's probably, it'll take you 2 years to do the subject. So for example, for languages, you would be required to successfully complete 1, 2 to do the 3, 4 and get your study score. But for some of the subjects, you can go straight into taking the 3, 4, and you don't really have to do the 1, 2 because the 1, 2 doesn't, it's an introductory thing to the 3, 4, but it's not completely relevant. So for example, for legal studies, I took the 1, 2 and I'm taking the 3, 4 this year, and there are some year 11s in my class who didn't take the 1, 2 and are doing the 3, 4 straight away. And the 1, 2 could be useful, but it's not, you're not assessed on the components in units 1, 2, so you don't really need to worry about the 1, 2. And some subjects are a prereq for others. So, for example, to do specialist maths, you are required to do maths methods either before or at the same time as taking spec. Now, there's the big question of, whoopsies, if you have to take a unit 1, 2 in year 11. Now, with taking unit 1, 2s in year 11, honestly, it's only based, it's based on your ability, I guess, and based on your school, because some schools, I think some schools won't allow you to do 3, 4s in year 11. Oops, that's, yeah. So there's a lot of different combinations with how you want to go about your VCE. So generally, most of us, so most people at McRob, we're taking 2, if you look at the pink number, where most of us at McRob are taking 2 units 1, 2, and 3, 4 from year 10 and year 11, and the other 4 in units in year 11, year 12. Sorry, so all right, let me start again. So to make your ATAR, you have to do a minimum of 4 subjects and a potential 2 others as increments. So you can either take 4 subjects, 5 subjects, or 6 subjects in VCE. And so generally though, most people take 6 subjects, and you can go, there's a lot of combinations on the way you can do that. Some people take 2 in year 11, so I'm talking about 3, 4s. Some people take 2 in year 11 and 4 in year 12. but at the same time, you can also take 1 in year 11 and 5 in year 12, because that makes 6. But some people who the school advises that you're not, the school advises you not to take a 3, 4 in year 11. Some people just go straight and do 5, 3, 4s in year 12. For some other schools, though, for people enrolled in SEAL, the SEAL Accelerated Program, they allow their students to have 3 years of VCE, so 3 years of doing 3, 4s, as opposed to the normal 2 years. So in SEAL classes, they'll be offered to take a 1, 2 in year 9. So instead of taking a 1, 2 in year 10, so that's a year earlier. So SEAL, they can do the VCE in 3 years to finish in year 12, or they can take it in 2 years and finish a year early. My friend who came to McRob from Box Hill, who did SEAL, she has friends, so we're in year 12, right? And she has friends already that are in uni because they did their VCE in 2 years. And yeah, because they get to skip year 10, they're a year ahead from everybody else. Yeah, so with the study score, give me a second. So with these subjects, so at the end of a 3-4, at the end of your successful completion of a 3-4 subject, you would get a study score. Now this study score, oopsies, yep. Okay. So this study score, if you can see from here, a study score is a score that ranges from 0 to 50, so the maximum is 50. And it's basically a rank of how well you did that subject as compared to everybody else in the state. So each subject aims to have the average, their mean, at 30. So 30, if you get a 30 in a subject, that would basically mean you're in the middle of your cohort in the state. And so the middle range would be about from 23 to 38, the score. And see, if you can see here, if you get below 20 for your study score, that would mean you're with 93% of the cohort in Victoria, and 78% if you're between 25 and 30. If you get between a 25 and 30, you'll basically be in the middle range if you get a score between 30 and 35. And if we're aiming for a 40 to 50, which if you get a score between 40 and 45, you're 9% of Victoria. You're in that 9% percentile, and you'll be in the lucky 2% if you get a score between 45 and 50. And with these subjects, so what if certain subjects are easier than others? For example, for further maths and specialist maths. Further maths has a more, basic, I guess. In comparison, further maths and specialist maths, then different, because further is a lot easier than spec. And for example, somebody could easily get a 46 for further, and somebody who worked really hard could get a 34 in spec. Now, because these two subjects are not at the same level of difficulty, VCAR then scales the scores of these subjects. So to do that, VCAR researches and they find what the average of the other people doing that subject in the other subjects, if that makes sense. So for example, if I was taking spec, then VCAR would look into everybody else in the state that's doing spec and take the average of the other subjects that they were doing other than spec. And if they find that it's a high average, so people who take spec are a high achieving cohort, it wouldn't really make sense if somebody achieves a 34 for spec. And that's why they scale the score of spec. And so for somebody who achieves really high in further, and they find out that the cohort didn't really get high averages with their other subjects, they would scale their further score. So if a lot of people take a certain subject, there would be a greater chance of scaling down the score because there would be a greater pool of people. So maybe a greater chance of not high achievers in that pool, and they might scale it down. Yep, that's just a closer look to it. Yep, so with the just elaborating more on scaling. With scaling, you wouldn't get the same amount of scaling for, wait, let me start again. So with the range of 0 to 50, you wouldn't get the same amount of scaling as everybody else doing the subject does. So, for example, for somebody who gets a 35, and for example, if they scale just like 1 point from the bottom of that graph, there's a lot of area in which you would slide, and so you would get a higher score after scaling. So for example, a 35 might get you to a 40, but if you get a higher score, if you get a higher raw score, so for example like a 43, there's a less amount of sliding, I guess, and you wouldn't get scaled as high as the 35 who got scaled to a 50, so that's 5 points. So for a 40, you would probably scale to a 42. It really depends on the subject, and it really depends on the cohort of that year, and it depends on where you sit on that bell curve. Yep, so with all these subjects, how does the calculation work? So with the ATAR is calculated based on an aggregate score, which is a score out of 210. So out of the possible 6, the 6 that you can take, out of the 6, there's a primary 4 of which they get 100% of the score, of your scaled score, and one of these 4 you have to be taking in English. So it's not just English. You can take English, English language, literature, or EAL, which is English as a second language. And that would be one of your primary 4. And the next 3 would be your best 3 out of all the subjects that you take. And then after that would be 2 other scores, I guess, like increments. They would be called increments, and they would only be worth 10%. And then these 6 subjects, these 6 numbers that you get will be all added up. Your scaled scores will be added up into, an aggregate out of 210. So, and after the whole state gets a number out of 210, VCA would calculate the percentage of how many people get that certain number out of 210. And then after VCA calculates how many people get that certain number, they would make it into a percentage, and then they would rank, they would see how many people you bet, I guess, in a sense, according to the percentages, and then you would get your ATAR. Oopsies, I did not know what happened. But if we look at ATAR calculator, which is a fun thing to do in your spare time. Oopsies. See, I put in my 6 subjects, so I do Inglang methods, Indo, Global, Legal, and Revs. If I just put in, and an extension study increment, and I put 4.5 average, I put in a 40 raw for all my subjects, and here we can see the English requirement is here, so that's for the first one, and then the next best 3 after the scaled score would be put in the primary 4, and then the next 2 would be 10% increments, which would only be 10, and then these would all be added up out of 210, and then they would rank you, and if I get all 40s for my subjects, I would get a 98.05 for my ATAR, which sounds really good. Doesn't sound too bad. Sounds pretty good, actually. Next. Cool. So if we remember from the assessments, how the Unit 3-4s are divided into two, so the SACs and the external exams, there's a high percentage that your study score is weighed on, and that is the SACs. So SACs are school assessed coursework, which is like sort of mini exams set by the school to assess different units. And after reading the VCAR website, I found out that there is actually a quite big effect on high achieving schools on your SACs and exams. So your SACs and exams, VCAR places a lot of weight onto your exams. So because SACs around the state could vary, right? The teachers around the state could write different difficulty levels of SACs depending on the teachers, and teachers could mark it more leniently or more harshly depending on the teacher itself. So with VCAR, so with VCAR places a lot of weight on the exam. So with the cohort, so your SACs, you get ranked in your class from your SAC results. So for example, if I average a 98 out of my SAC scores, and my friend averages an 80, and my other friend averages a 70, so that's a 98, an 80, and a 70. The school would rank us, so I would be ranked first. My 80% average friend would be ranked second, and my 70% average friend would be ranked third, and that ranking would be kept, right? And then with VCAR, with the external exams, if VCAR finds that the highest achieving student, so that would be me, and I get a score that was higher than my SAC marks, so for example, I get 100%. So then VCAR would lift up my SAC scores to 100%, and everybody else, so my other friend who gets an 80% average and my other friend that gets a 70% average would get raised up with me as well. So with your, I guess, highest achieving students, so if you've got friends in your school, in your class, who are high achievers and they get really high scores on their exam, you get a chance of being bumped up with them as well. So that's why being in a high achieving school could be sort of like a safety net to your ATAR. But I mean, at the same time, not being in a high achieving school doesn't impact that much on your ATAR, because you hear stories of, like, don't want to name schools, for example, Frankston do have people who get like 99 above. So it is possible, but being in a high achieving school can also be sort of a safety net, just in case you don't make it, because all your friends can bump you up as well. Where's my cursor? So yeah. Also, there are other acronyms that are associated with VCE, one of them being the GAT. So the GAT is a test that you take whenever you do a 3-4. So it's a test it's not based on your academic knowledge, but it's more like based on your ability to work out problems. So when I did the GAT, there was a lot of questions on identifying patterns, for example, and like general problem solving questions. And you do the GAT whenever you do the 3-4. And the GAT is there to help you out with your study score. So just in case, for example, if you fall sick before you do your exam and you couldn't do your exam in the best ability that you could have, then so if they find that your my score, for example, for global ended up being 25 because I was really sick and I was admitted to a hospital and I couldn't do it as well as I could. And if they find that my GAT score was a lot higher than my global score, so for example for the GAT I get a 40, then they would bump up my global score because they would find my GAT score is a lot higher and they would just like average it out. So the GAT is there for, you know, just to make everything fair from VCA. UMAT is another abbreviation for med students. So because there's a lot of people who want to take med, UMAT is there to filter out the people who truly, you know, should be doing med, and for people who are just doing it because their parents tell them to. And yeah, so UMAT is also like a ability-based test. People say you can't really study for the UMAT or the GAT, and it has really weird questions. My friends who did the GAT, they told me one of the questions was like, oh, if somebody was in a car crash along the road and you were driving along, what would be the right thing to do? Would it be to help them or just to drive past? I can't remember what the right answer was, but one of them was to not help them because it would have like legal complications. But it had really, you can't really study for the UMAT, so it's there to filter out the people who should be doing med and who should not be doing med. A little bit about university extension. So university extension is the ability for you to be doing first year uni whilst you're doing a year 12 subject. So for me, I'm doing Indonesian first year uni at Melbourne Uni at the same time as doing my year 12. So to do that, I applied at the end of last year to Melbourne Uni to be able to do Indonesian, and they look at my study score and how well prepared I was from the 3-4, and after recommendations from like the principal and recommendations from my school teacher, I was able to be put in university extension. But there's a really wide range of subjects, and not only Melbourne Uni holds them, so you can do them at Monash Uni. The Deakin holds them as well. There's RMIT. So generally, nearly all unis have university extension, and it's not that hard to get into. My friend who's doing Indonesian with me at the moment, doing uni extension, her scores for Indonesian wasn't amazing, but she was able to do uni extension, so they're pretty lenient on that. The benefits of doing uni extension is quite a lot, actually. You get to have the full student experience, so you get to have an ID card from Melbourne Uni. You have full access to the facilities, so you're able to go to the library, and like for example the prayer facilities at Melbourne Uni, you can only use them if you have a Melbourne Uni card, and I've got a Melbourne Uni card, so the prayer facilities are there for me to use. As well as that, you get credit for a first year uni subject. So for example, if I finish year 12 and I decide to go to Melbourne Uni, because I've got the credit for that first year uni subject, and if I decide to do Indo next year, then I am able to skip first year and go straight to second year next year. So I would finish earlier at the end of my graduate degree. So there's a less of a load. University extension can be quite a lot, because I have friends who do bio university extension, and she says that it's all right if you really like biology, because if you don't really like biology and you're doing uni extension, there's a lot of pracs, and there's lots of long hours and time you need to stay back after school. And for her, she likes bio, but she doesn't love it, so she does it, but she's not enjoying it as much as she would have. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're doing a university extension. Oh yeah, study skill tips. we're going really fast. So yeah, so something that McProb does is they hold us back after school sometimes on a Wednesday, and they get this company called Study Skills to hold study skill. So they give study skill tips to students at McProb, and there's just a couple of stuff that I found pretty useful from those sessions. So one of them is that sometimes people focus a lot on the uni course and the HR and study scores, but in actual fact, the best way to target those is to start smaller. So start from the bottom step, which is the SAC scores. So focus a lot on the SAC scores, getting a really high score for your SACs, and then going up to your exam scores and focusing on those before focusing a lot on your study score, your HR, and your uni course. And what I found interesting was no procrastination. So they actually did the company that came to us did a lot of research, and they found reasons for procrastination. A couple of them were being overwhelmed, not being able to break work into small pieces, the disability to not be able to harness motivation, and the vicious circle of not liking a subject and then not doing that subject and then not doing well at that subject, which causes you to not like that subject. And so you don't do well in that subject. And yeah. So yeah. And yeah. There's actually not that much there's not that much technicality with VCE. It's a very fair system, I think, because VCA, the body who manages it, it's very fair, and it, like, with all the scaling and stuff, it sounds really complicated, but it's very fair. And yeah, you guys should be all well. So yeah, question and answers, Q&A session. So if I was to take, so I'm taking Indonesian right now at Melbourne Uni. Melbourne Uni doesn't necessarily like put my name up higher on the list just because I did a uni extension subject, because if I did a uni extension subject and I got a low ATAR, it wouldn't be fair for them to put me higher up on the list. But at the same time, when I finished Indo this year, I would get credits. So I think it was like 12.5 or something like that. I'm not sure, but I would get credits for a first year uni subject. So if I go to Melbourne Uni, or if I go to any uni, I guess I would have that amount of credit for a first year, and I could skip, if I was doing Indo next year, I could skip straight into second year, if that makes sense. So at the end of your 4 years, I guess, you have 1 year of one less subject, so that's like less. It's less burden and less stress on yourself. And at the same time, another benefit is you really do get to experience that university life. I have to stay back quite late on Mondays and Wednesdays because my uni course is from 4:15 to 6:15, so that's like 2 straight hours of Indo, and it's at the end of the long day. But at the same time, you get to meet people from different areas in Melbourne, and you get to have that uni experience of, just being in that class with your tutor, and yeah, absorbing that uni life, if that makes sense. Cool. Any other questions? Yeah, so VCE is really straightforward. If you have any more questions, feel free to email me or come ask me questions afterwards. And yeah, are you sure there's no more questions?
Yeah, Bu. I've got one question, Muti. VCE actually in some school, you can start taking basically one or two subjects when you are in year 10,
Yeah.
right? From your experience, is there any benefit if you take, let's say, more than one subject in year 10? Is it going to reduce your load in your 11 or in your 12? So it means you can focus basically more in a less subject when you are in year 12 or 11 in order for you to prepare the final VC exam. So hopefully you'll be able to get like the high score.
Yeah. With doing a 1, 2, and 3, 4 earlier, so not in year 11 and year 12. To do more than one, it really depends on the student because for a lot of the schools, they before accepting a student's 1, 2, and 3, 4 request, they look into their grades and they see if they're capable enough to do it. Because there are some of my friends who were advised not to take more than 1, 1, 2, and there are the rest of us who take 2, 1, 2s in year 10. It's it doesn't have that much of an impact on your VCE scores because it's still doing that subject, but it does split your workload. So if you're aiming to do 6 subjects, then if you do 2 in year 10 and 11 and do 4 in year 11 and year 12, it's less stress on yourself. So in year 12, you can focus like clearly on those 4 subjects and not worry about another one or another 2. So yeah, it could boost up your scores, I guess, but it really depends on the student and if they take advantage of all that. Yeah, that's all. If that makes sense. If there's anything that's confusing, feel free to ask because I did that pretty rushed, as you can tell. But yeah, is there any more questions? That's all good. Oh yeah.
I just want to know when the student can decide, I want to take VCE or I just want to take like, what you call,
VCAL?
yeah,
VCAL,
VCAL.
yeah.
So when decision that the student have to make? Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. To my knowledge, you would pretty much at least start to decide in year 9 because you really do get the opportunity to take a 1, 2 if you decide to do VCE in year 10. So I guess in year 9, just start thinking about the pathway you want to take. So if you want to go into higher education, then it would be strongly advised for you to take VCE. But for VCAL, well, McRob's not very. We don't have VCAL at all at McRob, so I'm not too knowledgeable at that. But I think VCAL is more of a hands-on approach. So if you want to go straight to employment, you have training straight away. So I don't know if you want to become a hairdresser or something, you get training straight away from VCAL, so you don't have to take like maths or science that wouldn't really help your hairdressing career in the future. So it really depends on the student, I guess, on what they want to do in the future. And yeah, so yeah, I think start thinking in year 9 and deciding in year 10.
Is it possible in the middle of year 9 or year 10, if they change their mind, want to do VCE or cancel doing VCE, is it possible?
I think there shouldn't be a problem with it because, I mean, like, if you talk to your career counselor, if you talk to the people at your school about changing your mind, I'm sure they would, like, help you because they would always try to find loopholes for you to get to the place that you want to be. But I think year 10 should be fine. But in year 11, for example, when you're doing a 3-4, when you're not doing VCE, and if you want to go straight into a 3-4, you're not able to do that because to do VCE, you have to do 3-4 from start to finish. So, for example, my friends who want to switch in year 11 when they're doing their 3-4s, if they want to switch into another 3-4, it's not possible because they have certain like times they learn the content and at certain times they do their SACs, which wouldn't be fair if they jumped into another 3-4 subject without having the same amount of contact, I guess, with a teacher. So if you want to switch from VCAL to VCE in year 11 or year 12, I don't think that would be possible. I wouldn't advise with doing that. But I think, like earlier on, if you decide to change your mind, it should be a lot easier. And if you talk to the right people at school, it should be all fine because they all want to try to help you get to the place that you want to be. So yeah, it should be fine. Cool. Any other questions?
Say you know you're not gonna finish your secondary education in Australia, so like
Yeah.
you don't go back to Indo. What is there gonna be any effects we see when you go back to Indo?
I'm not too familiar with the Indo education system. I'm not sure what happens actually in Indo, but I don't think there should be an effect. But oh, I know Icha, if you remember her, she left to Bandung quite a while ago. Icha, she left, I think, in year 7, in the middle of middle of year 6, and she left to go to Bandung. And because in Australia we don't have like tests like they do for moving into primary school to like SMP, we don't have tests here. So Icha, when she moved, she didn't do a test in Melbourne. So when she went back to Bandung, and when she applied to a Bandung school, they asked her for like a certificate saying that, oh yeah, she did a test to go into secondary school and she didn't do one. So that was a lot of trouble. But I think, I'm not sure actually, don't ask me about Indonesia because I don't know what happens there. But yeah, I can get back to you and I can refer you to somebody. But yeah, I'm not quite sure. Sorry. Any more questions?
Sekedar menambahkan saja yang berkaitan dengan sistem pendidikan di Indonesia, berkaitan dengan sistem pendidikan di Australia. Kalau di Indonesia itu kan setiap naik kelas ada raportnya, ada academic reportnya. Kemudian kalau misalnya lulus SD ada ijazahnya gitu. Nah kalau di sini di Indonesia, di Australia itu lulus SD tidak ada ijazah kelulusan SD. Kemudian setiap naik kelas itu kan tidak ada academic reportnya. Jadi baru pertama kali student itu baru pertama kali mendapatkan surat kelulusan itu ya lulus secondary school. Jadi kalau misalnya dari sini pindah ke Indonesia, strongly advise lah untuk menyelesaikan, paling tidak menyelesaikan satu level pendidikan. Jadi misalnya year 11 atau year 9 atau year 10 selesaikan dulu sampai, kalau bisa gitu ya, strongly advise selesai sampai Desember itu atau ya Desember ya, awal Desember. Ya kemudian kemudian mohon kepada konjen, ada surat yang menyatakan bahwa di sini anak yang bernama ini telah menyelesaikan secondary school year level berapa gitu. Jadi kayak ada semacam surat pernyataan yang menegaskan gitu dari konjen, dari pihak konjen, yang kemudian itu nanti diurus ke Departemen Pendidikan Dasar dan Menengah kalau nggak salah ya, kalau masih ada. Jadi seperti itu, setahu saya seperti itu. Mungkin ada bapak-bapak ibu-ibu lain yang mungkin lebih punya informasi mengenai ini. Silahkan.
Thanks, Mom. Yeah.
Can I just ask questions about you mentioned you have like 4 subjects and 2 other subjects, so 6 subjects for PCE.
Yeah.
Was there any compulsory subjects in the first 4? And second question is, was there any different weightings of subjects? Meaning that one subject's probably higher different scoring system than the other subjects?
Okay. So the first one was sorry, I have a really bad memory. It's exam revision at the moment. Compulsory subjects, yeah. It really depends on what uni course you want to take. So, for example, I'm I want to go into Arts Melbourne, and Melbourne Arts, they don't have any prerequisite subjects other than English. So I have to take any form of English, and they have like the minimum study score that I need to get into that uni course. But there are other uni courses such as maybe med, where you have to be taking a maths, so either methods or special or further, I think, and taking, if I'm not mistaken, either bio, chem, or physics, like one of the sciences. I'm not very familiar with med, but like other courses such as engineering and med, if you're interested in those, they have prereqs, and it really depends also on which university you're interested in applying to, because they have different prereqs. So yeah, just think about that. And the second one was about different weighting, right? All the different subjects held by VCA, they all have the same weight system. So like no one subject is considered to be more important than the other. But yeah, so they're all equally weighted, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that their difficulty is all the same. So like not all subjects are as easy as the others or not as difficult as the others. So that's why they have that scaling system that I was talking about, you know, finding the average, scaling up and down. And yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, cool. Any other questions? Yep. Cool. Look, for me, year 7 and year 8 is a time for them to just ease into junior school and middle school and high school. I feel like you shouldn't worry too much in year 7 and year 8, because they have, yeah, at the same time, they don't have the same like education system in year 7 and year 8 when compared to like year 11 and year 12. Because if I remember, in year 7 and year 8, everybody does the same subjects, right? And no, you don't have, they do have electives, but they're not like assessed by VCA. So I think in year 7 and year 8, just relax for a bit. Maybe decide, maybe if you feel like it, just look into all the subjects. Like, oh yeah, I want to do this one, I want to do that one. But like, yeah, don't worry about it. It should be fine. Like, the Australian education system is really lax. So you should be you should be able to get away with not worrying about it in year 7 and year 8. Yeah, should be okay. Cool. Any questions?
Yes, I've got two other questions, Pak Muti. The first one is, this is something actually that I experienced in the past when before I basically choose actually the university. I mean, sometimes the mistake actually, especially in Indonesia, your parent tends actually to, this is the message to the your boys and girls, I mean, tend to want you to become someone. But here, I mean, is there any, basically in your school, is there any specific test that can identify actually your strength? Whether you will be a good in basically doing engineering, or because sometimes your parents want you to become a doctor, but that's not the reality. I mean, maybe you are good in something else, and here in Australia, it's quite different. In any area, you can actually excel. That's the first question. And the second one, let's say this is the matter of, also of a strategy. Let's say, for instance, you're planning to do engineering actually at uni, and then I believe math is one of the compulsory. But in order to boost actually your score, let's say for instance, you are able to do specialist math. I believe specialist math is higher than method, if I'm not mistaken, is it? But you know that you can do a specialist math, but you know that rather than I'm doing specialist math, I better do math method because I know I can get the higher score. Is there any advantage? Or is there any restriction?
So with like taking an easier subject while
That's
you
right. That's right. To easier subject in order for you to get the higher score, because at the end of the day, actually, your objective is to get the higher score,
Yeah.
right?
I get what you mean.
So Is that one of the best strategy, or is it allowed, or is there any restriction? That's the second question. But the first one is quite important. I mean, is there any test that can identify basically? This is quite important, especially for those who will be doing this.
So with the first question about finding out where you specialize in, I'm not sure if this is applicable to all schools, but at McGrath we had this test in year 10, I think. They did a test, right, Ra? In year 9, they had a test in year 9 where they assessed all the year 9s, and they had a bunch of problem-solving questions, really vague ones you can't really study for, and there's finding out the pattern sort of questions. And what is that called? Do you remember? No, it's not called. Yeah, it's the test backup. And from that test, they were able to tell us where our strengths lie. So if I was stronger at problem solving, or if I was stronger at writing, or oral speaking or something. Yeah, McRob did have a test, but I'm not sure that's applicable to all schools. But yeah, we had that test, and we kind of found out where our strengths lie. But at the same time, you're not obliged to follow that at all. So if you find out that the test gave you put your strengths into somewhere where you don't really want to go in, you are more than welcome to just choose a different path. Yeah, so that's the first one.
What you're saying that is not applicable means that not every school is doing this kind of test, or can you share basically what is the name of the company which is actually providing this kind of test? At least if the school they don't actually provide this kind of facilities, we can basically do it privately.
Yeah. I'll look more into that. I'll link you the name of the test because I can't remember at the moment. But yeah, I'm not quite sure whether all schools do it or if it was just McRob or certain schools. So I'm not quite sure, but I'll get back to you on that. Yeah, go for it.
One that you must do. Other than that, you can. If you don't want to do math, that's fine.
Yeah.
But of course, it will limit your option if you don't do that.
So yeah, for that compulsory subjects thing, it would be best if you actually look into the uni course you're interested in before doing any major 3, 4, or 1, 2 decisions. Yeah, because for med, I know they have prereqs such as chem. All my friends who want to do med, they have to do chem whether they like it or not. And I know for every single subject, English is a prereq. But yeah, you might have to look into engineering or stuff like that. Moresby? Yeah, the Moresby test. We did that. It's called Moresby test. Company Moresby. Yeah, it's the Moresby test.
So
if that's the aptitude test that McRob did in year 9. Yeah. And with the advice from your teachers and your careers counselor, It is, I have to mention that it is like advice. It doesn't really restrict you. They don't like rule out certain subjects that you can't do based on your report, because I'm not sure they're allowed to do that. So, for example, they're not. They don't like rule out subjects that you can't do based on your report, because, for example, my school is a really Asian school, and their parents really want them to do med. Like a lot of my friends, they all want their kids to do med. So, for example, my careers counselor, we all had a session with our careers counselor before choosing our subjects, and so my friends who are really good at humanities and really good at history and things, like my careers counselor would advise them. They would tell them, oh yeah, maybe you should think about taking revs next year, because you look like you're really good at history. But my friends would be like, oh no, I don't have space for revs because I'm doing all these prereqs for the med uni courses. And yeah, so they can advise you, and it would be really good if you take on that advice, but at the same time they can't rule out anything that you want to do or you can't do or anything like that. Yeah. And the second question was about.
Yeah, but is there any actually advantage? Let's say, for instance, for the, I know that what you are saying, that you need to look at the prerequisite, what is about the requirement of the subject that for the course that you'll be doing at the uni. Let's say if it requires you are doing math, is there any advantage if you are doing basically easier subject like general math or math method, rather than you are doing specialist math, even though actually you are capable in doing that?
Yeah. Okay. With playing to your strengths and taking an easier subject than your capability, I would repeat again that my school is a really Asian Asian school, and there are a lot of people who are really good at maths, right? And at McRub, we offer further methods and spec. Technically, you're not allowed to take all three, but I have friends who are currently doing all three because they are really good at maths, and they think, oh yeah, I'm going to play to my strengths and I'm going to take all the maths subjects that I can because I know I'm good at maths. So you can get through like loopholes like that if you want to take all three. That's for one instance. But with taking a subject that is easier, I guess it would be sort of an advantage, because if you know you're really good at maths and for example, if I'm really good at maths and if I decide to take further maths, and so I know I'm going to be against a cohort that's not so good at maths, right? And I would potentially be really good. Yeah, that would be good. That would be an advantage. But I feel like I should say that don't maybe feel like challenging yourself and take maths and take methods and spec, because if you are really good at maths, that means you really enjoy maths, and so if you take methods and spec, that would sort of like, I don't know, pique your interest in maths, and that would like help you along. So for example, if you want to take engineering or something, like taking methods or spec would really like perk up your interest in maths. And yeah, if you're really good at maths, that means you're really interested in maths and you really like it. So I don't see why you shouldn't take like harder maths subject just to challenge yourself. But yeah, there's no restriction against taking easier subjects than what you can do. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Much, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, on that side. Yep. Yep. I actually do agree with English being the most important subject, because English is actually compulsory in like every student that's doing VCE. They have to be doing it in English. So like any English, whether it's like English, Englang, literature, or EAL, they have to be doing English. So English. The skill of English is really important to maintain. But just tips, I guess, on English. I really I noticed that. So before I did the McRob test, right, I was an avid reader. I read a lot of books, but then once got into McRob, I kind of stopped reading because of the workload and stuff, and I found that I didn't have time. But I found that I sort of lost a bit of skill to my English because I stopped reading and I stopped like finding new ways to I don't know, sort out ideas and finding new ways on how to make structures, you know, describing things in English. And I found that really, like, I regret not reading a lot during that period of time, because that certainly would have helped me. So yeah, so with English, I think at the very basic level, just read a lot, read as much as you can, so you can, yeah, on one side, like, get a lot of vocabulary, and on the other, just to get a wider sense of the world as well, and get like different ways of thinking. And yeah, read a lot, because English is important. Read a lot. Cool. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. With extracurricular like that, actually, a lot of universities offer scholarships for like music and for sport. So, for example, while I was applying for uni courses, I found there was a lot of scholarships for people, for example, who did sport on a state level. They would find ways to put you inside their university because they know, oh, you're really good at music, you're really good at sport. So yeah, so with people who are really good at those extracurricular subjects, don't like give up on that, because that could give you a huge advantage on like scholarship applications and just like resume writing at the same time. Because unis, I think unis, when you're in a really tight spot, for example, between somebody who has the same HR score as you do and you two are fighting for the same spot, if one person did not do anything at all and just did the schoolwork and no extracurricular, and there was another person who did lots of sport, lots of music, lots of volunteering, I am very certain that that university would take that person who is more involved in sport and music and volunteering, rather than that person who just does school, if that makes sense. So yeah, it is a huge advantage in doing extracurricular work. Also, I find that so I'm in an orchestra right at school, and a lot of the people who are in orchestra are actually really smart when they're doing like normal subjects. For example, I have a friend who does violin, and she's actually really amazing at history. So, and there's a lot of other people who do music or sport and have lots of extracurricular, and I find that they're actually doing really well in their school studies. So yeah, so I really think extracurricular is important. It's an advantage to school as well as out of school. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, Kevin just gave me a sign that he's so happy that math is not compulsory, but no, it's not happening like that, Kevin, because I just want to share my experience when I attend the other VCE session at Kevin's school.
Yeah.
The teacher said, because what a year 9, 10, even the 12 student know what they want for their life, right? Even adult, they change career in the middle of their life. So to be safe, even though math is not compulsory, but just take it just in case in year 11, year 12, you decide to do something who have math as prerequisite.
Mhm.
And then if you're interested in something like engineering, I think I heard that at least you take one science.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless like Kevin, he doesn't want to do anything with engineering. So yeah, off the hook with science, yeah, but math, math you have to do it all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and also share my experience for anyone who attend here today and just heard the first time all about the word that you heard today and you don't know anything about it, just hanging there. Probably you have to come again next time, 2-3 times, and then you will, because this is the second time and I got some of the ideas already, but I still lost in some, and I still have hopes next time if I come again or hear something, then I get more knowledge. It's kayak year 7 ya Mbak Mul. Bingung ya Mbak. Yeah, it's normal. Just hanging there. Yeah, I just want to share my experience with you. Thank
Cool,
you.
thanks. Yeah. So wait, if you decide not to take like a really important subject like maths or chem, it does really like restrict your ability on going to other areas. Like for example, I'm not taking chem at all, and that means, well, there are other pathways, but it'll take a lot longer than if I actually did chem. And if I decided, oh yeah, I actually really like med and I really like nursing or something, and yeah, because I didn't do chem, I can't actually go straight. Chemistry, chem is chemistry, by the way. Chem is chemistry. Yeah, so yeah, it would take a lot longer if I decide that, oh, I actually really like medicine and I want to get into medicine, but I haven't done chemistry. Like, it would take a lot longer if I didn't do it. So it would, yes, it would restrict my options if I didn't do like a strong subject like methods or chemistry or a science like that. But yeah, I agree. If anybody else wants to share their opinions, or Ibu, if I missed anything, feel free. But yeah, does anybody else have any other questions? Yeah.
If you have good score, it means no matter where you go, they will accept you, right?
With good scores. Oh, okay.
Anatara.
Yeah. Yeah.
What if you have like not average but slightly average, like 80%?
Mhm.
I believe that some course will receive higher score and they will reject if you below that
Okay.
benchmark. My question is, how do you know that benchmark? Like, is it calculated every year before your score or after you apply with your score?
With that benchmark, actually every course has it's called a clearly in ATAR, where they calculated their minimum ATAR of accepting people the year before, because they can't really calculate the minimum ATAR of that year without like people applying for that uni, right? So they have clearly in ATARs for the previous year, so you kind of can gauge like how in demand that course is and how hard you have to work to get into that course, like safely get into that course. You can take a look at their clearly in ATAR, but their clearly in ATAR does vary as years go by. Like for example, arts at Melbourne, it used to be 86. The clearly in ATAR used to be 86, but this for last year, the clearly in ATAR was 92, so it jumped pretty high. So I have to work a lot harder if I want to get into Melbourne Uni. But with just getting just below that benchmark, there are things like C's, SEAS, and like I guess other not programs, but like other things that VCAR has to like help people who get just below. So for example, if your score was affected by, for example, an unfortunate event like a divorce or something, or like a family death, or like you being sick for a really long period of time, C's is there for you to apply to, and they would like help you boost up your score just a little bit. It's like an equity-based measuring system. So yeah, I think VCA's fair, and yeah, if you've got like circumstances like that, and it's actually really loose. I've got friends who applied to C's just because they live in the West or just because they live in Frankston, and they could actually get C's and get their score boosted up. I know Tata Lara's son, he had his score boosted just because he went to Westall Secondary. So he wasn't able to get into the course that he wanted really like safely, but because of, I think, C's, and because he went to Westall Secondary, which is considered a disadvantaged school, he was able to get his score boosted up and enter the course that he wanted. So yeah. Cool. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah. So with disadvantaged schools, I'm not actually quite sure what the criteria is, but I'm pretty sure Vika has like a list of schools they consider disadvantaged. But I feel like it's really their location, and so yes, yeah. Yeah, it's also considered disadvantaged. Yeah, so those sort of schools. But yeah. Mhm. Well, if you move to a disadvantaged school, you also have that possibility of getting, yeah, you don't get enough support. Yeah, you have that possibility of being influenced by by the low scores. So, like for example, right, your friends aren't really high achievers and they slack off. You have the possibility of getting like influenced by them, and also with the I think I spoke a little bit about your school being a bit of like a safety net, because you're judged by how well your cohort does, judge how well your class does in a subject. That can sort of boost up your score just in case if like something not very good happens. So yeah, don't move to a disadvantaged school. Just stay. Don't move. Yeah, cool. Any other questions? Cool. Yeah. So. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the government has like this kind of benefit system with languages, because they're trying to encourage students to take languages. So that's why languages scale a lot more than like normal subjects. So yeah, if you're really, yeah, right, if you're really good at a language, or if you have like that ability to do a language, or if you just want to do a language, just do it, because it scales heaps and it'll help you, I think. I believe in the long run. Yeah, cool. Any other questions? Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got another question. Is it possible to change, let's say, in year 11, you are doing, let's say, for instance, chemistry, and then in year 12, actually, you found that at the end, you don't want to do chemistry, you want to change different subject, but is it too late to make the changes? The first one. The second one, is it allowed?
Oh, okay. With changing, in between a 3-4, I am not sure you are actually allowed to change in the middle of a 3-4, because that means if I move, for example, from English language to normal English, I would miss out on that little bit where I was at English language. I would miss out that I don't know, that knowledge bit that they teach other students. So I'm fairly sure that you're not allowed to change in while you're in the 3/4s. So if you have doubts about a 3/4, I would suggest just stick with it and just work as hard as you can. But with 1/2s, I'm sure you can swap between subjects in while you're doing a 1/2. So whether it's mid-year or like mid-semester, they would let you swap in between 1/2s, because 1/2s you either get a pass or a fail. It's not really like a VCAR study score thing. So yeah, just stick with it if it's a 3/4. Yeah. Yeah. Opportunities. Yeah. Yep. Yep. With taking a language outside of school, the fact, yeah. Yep. Yeah, yeah, yeah. At VSL, yeah, yeah. Yep. So just the fact that it's out of school, out of your like school's curriculum, that doesn't boost up the score. But the fact that you're doing a lot, like at all, like that boosts up the score. So for example, my friend who graduated last year, she did French in school, and because at Macrobi you can't take more than one language, she did Indonesian at VSL at a Victorian School of Languages outside of school. And just because it's not part of the school's curriculum, that doesn't boost up her score. But the fact that she's doing a language, that's the thing that boosts up the score. So yeah. Okay. Yep. So with languages, because the government's trying to encourage students to do more languages, right? So the government places more scaling in, I guess, to that actual subject. So for example, if I were to do French outside of school at a VSL, the scaling would be placed onto my result of French, my study score in French, not to like the overall ATAR, it's just to that subject. Yeah, yeah. To my knowledge, Indonesian it only actually goes to 50, but like for Chinese and things, for Chinese they go up to like 51, 52. But okay, yeah, Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no worries. Cool. Any other questions? Yep. Is there a question? Yeah, go for it. For all the subjects?
Is there any subject that's not native to Batam?
Okay. I can pull up the VCA website and take a look at all the subjects that VCA offers. But all the subjects that VCA offers as a VCE, they all have external exams. So for languages, for sciences and stuff, they have exams, external exams. But for the subjects that aren't VCE, so for example, for vet subjects, which are more hands-on, they're not part of VCE, but they can contribute to your ATAR, because my friends are doing a vet, and yeah, they can contribute to the ATAR. I might need to look more into that, but so yeah, I'm pretty sure subjects that you take do contribute to your ATAR. Let me pull up the VCAR website, but yeah, is that answer your question? I'm not sure that I really answered that. Yeah. You can use. Yeah. Yeah, I get what you mean. So with taking an extra subject, that's not part of your 6. So taking 7 subjects, you can technically take 7 subjects. So that like one sort of acts as a backup, right? You can do that, but it's actually really rare. To my knowledge, is actually really rare. Like it's really rare for somebody to be doing a 3-4 in year 10. Usually, most people take their first 3-4s in year 11 and then year 12. I think it's only special circumstances. Like to my knowledge, there was only like 2-3 people who took 3-4s in year 10 out of like a cohort of 250. So it's really, really rare. But yeah, it is possible if you want to look into that. Yay. I know. Yeah. Any other questions?
Just want to ask again, I'm not sure if this has been explained, about the scaling. Scaling, is there any, I mean, what is the basis of their decision to scale the result up or to scale the result down? And is it based on the school, the result from the student that doing it in that school, or the whole actually Victoria?
It's actually, scaling is based on the scores of the whole state. So if something was an easy subject, such as further, and everybody seems to be getting really, really high scores, but it's only because it's a really, really easy subject, then VCA would find out that it's an easy subject by finding out sort of like the average of the students' other subjects. So if the student's doing methods, aren't going really well, the other subjects are getting like 20s, 30s in the other subjects, then VCA can like tell that, oh yeah, further is actually a really easy subject if that person who's not doing very well is doing really well in further, if that makes sense. So if it's considered as a stupid subject, or if a lot of people are doing it, then VCA would scale the subject down. But if, for example, it's a really like hard subject, such as global, such as REBS or specialist maths, then VCA looks, oh look, all the kids in Spec are getting kind of low scores for Spec, but they look at their other scores and, oh, they're actually going really well in the other subjects. That means that Spec is actually a hard subject, and then they would scale it up. Yeah. It really depends on the cohort of that year. Like every subject, the scaling is different according to the cohort of each year. So yeah, if that answers your question. Cool. Any other subjects? I mean, questions? If not, we can.
If there's another question, probably, what if you don't mind to share probably your contact, if probably parents or the boys and girls here basically will be doing the visit, if they want to ask actually further question, maybe at this session they don't really have the question to ask. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. My email's up there. If you wanna, yeah. So my email's up on there. If you wanna ask, if you find out that you have more questions and you didn't bring them up today, my email's up here. I can, if you're interested, I can give out my number as well. That's cool too. But yeah, yeah. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'm here to help if you have any queries about VCE.
Okay, thank you so much, Muti, for sharing your information about the VC with us. Hopefully, everybody here can get the advantage for what has been explained. And if there is any further question, I can basically contact the email address on the screen. And, yeah, before we conclude the session, probably once again, I just like to thank Timothy. And before we close, let's we read the doa kafaratul majlis. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yeah, for sure. It's like